Hi, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. We are just pulling up our presentation. We are so happy to see everyone joining us, and thank you for listening to our opening song. And I will hand it over to Holly Echo Hawk and Bernice UP Jordan.
Terrific. Hi, everybody. Very good to see everybody. Let's see. I know that Lee is working to get the presentation up, and she's having a little bit of computer slowdown trouble earlier, so bear with her. I want you all to know that I'm talking to you all from a special place today. I happen to be in The Hague, Netherlands, and we're having one of our international Indigenous behavioral health meetings here. We just finished 2 days with some wonderful folks from around the world. But I wouldn't miss this for anything. So oh, there we go. Here we go.
Looks like we're right on track, Lee. Hi, everybody. I am Bernice UP Jordan. I am a citizen of the Fort Peck Sioux Nation. I am a public health program manager for the United South and Eastern Tribes. We have actually now rebranded to the Office of Public Health. Next slide. Just a couple of participation tips. We are building a community. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Select everyone and let your fellow participants know your name, your tribal affiliation, your job title, and organization. Everyone will be muted until the audience feedback portion of the hour. During that segment, use the raise my hand icon in Zoom, and the host will unmute you to offer your reflection. You will receive a link to the recording and presentation by the end of the week. Next slide. Continuing education information. This activity is jointly provided by the United South and Eastern Tribes and Cardia Services. Cardia Services is approved as a provider of nursing continuing professional development by the Montana Nurses Association, an accredited approver with distinction by the American Nurses Credentialing Centers Commission on Accreditation. This activity has been planned and implemented in accordance with the accreditation requirements and policies of the California Medical Association through the joint providership of Cardia and USET. Cardia is accredited by CMA to provide continuing medical education for physicians. You will receive one AMA PRA Category 1 TM credit for that. Next slide. Upon completing this activity, one contact hour will be awarded. Successful completion of this continuing education activity includes the following: attending the entire CE activity, completing the online evaluation, available at the conclusion of the meeting in the chat within 2 weeks of the event, submitting an online CE request within 2 weeks of the event, and you will have your certificate sent via email from Michelle Dougherty at Cardia Services. Next slide. There are no financial relationships with ineligible companies for those involved with this ability to control the content of this activity. Next slide. And you are on Indigenous land. We always like to, talk about, what Indigenous land you were on. We have put in a QR code and an HTTPS to learn what land you are acknowledging and standing on. This is currently being updated as we speak. We don't have any new information at this time, but this is, as we continue to make improvements to this map, please know that we will, follow those guidelines and update accordingly. Next slide. And I am going to pass it off to Holly Echohawk, who is Pawnee.
Yes, I am. Well, listen, everybody, I'm really happy to see you all. And I was just scanning through who's all on the call, and it's wonderful to see both urban Indian folks and tribal folks from all around the country as usual, and good to see some of our Alaska friends, folks from Maine, and all the other tribes that are on the call. So, here's what I was thinking. You know, in my work, I have the wonderful privilege of traveling all around Indian country, and for many years. And I thought maybe I would put together something for you all that would just be what I call a walk around Indian country, and just kind of highlight a few things that I see that I wanted to share with you that's exciting. And of course, we use a wonderful picture of the Mother Earth as this, and I was laughing at myself, and I thought, well, maybe that's going a little too far and where indigenous people are, but however, maybe we are all over the world. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I originally called this a walkabout, but some of my Aboriginal friends told me that they felt like the term walkabout, their term, was being kind of overused and not appropriately used by folks, not necessarily me, but I thought, oh, I'll change it to walk around. So we're going to take a little behavioral health walk around the next 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes on Indian country, around Indian country. So if we can go to the next slide. So I wanted to share with you first some information about Alaska, and I know that we have some folks from Fairbanks on the call. I've spent a fair amount of time in Alaska, and particularly out in Bethel and the region that Bethel serves, which is a very large area. You can see Bethel there on the left there from Anchorage, and it's a really beautiful uh, plane ride out there to Bethel. And the villages are all scattered around, and I've been to many of the villages out there. But there's something interesting that's happening that's not necessarily a good thing, but I want to share with you because it's coming up in other parts of the country as well, and that's climate change. So if we go to the next slide, the climate change is really having an impact on Indigenous well-being in different parts of the country, whether it's storms and excessive rain, or it's heat, as we know what's happening right now in many places. I'm from Oklahoma, and the heat in Oklahoma is so severe of late. It's always been hot there in the summer, but it's really severe now, and to the point that some of the traditional dances that happen for some of the tribes over the summer have had to change their dates to try to get to a little bit cooler date. That's never happened before. Some of these traditions have always been on certain times in the summer, always, and to have them actually have to change is pretty amazing. But I wanted to share with you a little bit about Newtok, Alaska, a Yupik Eskimo village. And this picture here shows you where it's located. It's in the Bethel service area. And Lee did such a great job of making it more visible with that little red of where Newtok is. But what's happening with climate change there is the permafrost is melting. And you know, in Alaska, there's a layer of permafrost that stays year round, basically year round frozen, but it's melting, and and then there's mold that's related to it. So it's requiring that some of the Alaska Native villages have to relocate. They have to leave and move to a different place. And this is a picture of this, to me, at least in my experience going to Alaska Native villages, this is a pretty typical picture of the way the villages look and the boardwalks that they have. So the next slide. So what's happening there is the rivers, the river waters are also rising and getting closer and closer to the village. So this is why this particular village has to move. And you can see the river right there that has encroached. And it used to be, the village was never that close to the river, but that's how That's the climate change is happening and affecting Newtok. And then the next picture. So they are having to move from, and you can see in the top where Newtok is. Thank you, Lee. And then they are having to move to a new village of Murtarvik. Um, and it's very distressful. You can, if any of you have ever been involved in a flood, you know what it does to your house. You know how the water is everywhere. You know how it seeps up walls, and then mold can grow, which is very dangerous actually for a health perspective. But just the fact of having everything you have at risk or maybe ruined because it's wet. In California, when some of the major storms and fire, in particular in California in the summer, have gone through and actually burned entire towns and villages. Some of the native people have lost everything, including all their regalia, all their um, traditional belongings in fires. It makes me really concerned about this particular village and what it does to the behavioral health and wellness of people who are in that dire situation and have to move. So there's clearly some major behavioral health disruptions that happen to in this particular Alaska village example. Their physical health is at risk because of the rising water and the mold in particular. I think one of the stories that came out of Newtok is, and families are temporarily displaced. Some of them have gone on to the new village, but some of them still, their family members have to stay because they didn't all move at once. It wasn't a clean sweep. It's kind of a progressive move. People who have asthma, some of the children have asthma, and being in a mold environment is definitely not good for that. So there's some physical health challenges. And the family disruption, of course, I just mentioned is terrible. You can imagine how mothers would worry and fathers if they're separated from their children or their elderly people or their cousins or aunties and uncles during this whole disruption. There's housing and food insecurity. New homes have to be built in the new village. So it creates tremendous emotional distress, as any of you can probably imagine. But climate change is something that is definitely happening and affecting Native communities. So I just wanted to share with you this one example of Alaska. And then the next slide. So we started up in Alaska, and now we're going to kind of come down the West Coast to California. And so, California, if California was a country, it is so large and so economically powerful that it would be like the fourth or fifth largest country in the world. So, in addition to being such a large state in population, it also is a very large state in terms of tribal people. So California has 109 federally recognized tribes. And I think, I don't have the precise number, but it's like 70 state recognized tribes in addition. And in addition to that, there are other tribes that are neither federally or state recognized, but certainly are indigenous communities and tribal communities. So very large state. We do quite a bit of work up and down throughout the state of California. And then the next slide. So there's tremendous diversity in California with all these different tribes. And they're completely different. Again, you all know I'm from the Pawnee Nation in Oklahoma, which is one of the Plains tribes. The way that the traditional dress and dance regalia for Plains Indians totally different than some of the California tribes. This is a picture of some young Yurok women of Northern California, and the Yurok tribe is pretty close to the California-Oregon border, and I just love the way that some of these California tribes their traditions are all, you notice they're all natural colors. And they have these fabulous baskets that they wear on their heads. And it's just really wonderful. I've been out to Europe quite a bit of late. And they also have the pretty well-known, pretty famous judge there, Judge Abby Abinetti, who's one of the very well-known tribal judges in the country. So it's a really beautiful place. And they also have the Klamath River, which is the picture next to it. And the Klamath River is more than a river to them. I was fortunate to be invited to one of their ceremonies, and they have that particular ceremony right on the ocean where the Klamath River comes into the ocean. And it was really a beautiful and I was privileged to be there. You had to go in the dark because it started at sunrise. So you had to be there on the beach with them to start to watch them come in to their dance area. And they're also barefoot, at least in this one ceremony. So it's just totally different. So incredible, wonderful diversity across California. So the next slide is, okay, so now we're going a little bit further down California to the San Francisco, Oakland Bay area. So the thing I wanted to share with you here that I think is just really fabulous, and thank you all for joining again. I know that some people I've been watching the people join. So on the left is a really incredible Native man named Marty Wakasu. And Marty Wakasu is a very old friend of mine. And we have been known each other for over 40 years. My gauge in that is, and Marty knows this, is my son is 41, and I knew Marty before my son was even born. So we go way back, and Marty's fabulous person from South Dakota, originally Lakota, and he's been the executive director of the Native American Health Center in Oakland for a very long time, and his wife, Helen Wakazu, was the 50-year, I believe, executive director of the Friendship House in San Francisco, which is residential treatment. But Marty has an incredible vision for the Native American Health Center in Oakland, which serves a tremendous number of Native people who live in the San Francisco Bay Area. Healthcare, behavioral health, substance use treatment, a whole gamut. I think they have 300 employees, so they're a large operation now, and they've been able to expand and purchase buildings. So they have hard property. They're just getting ready to launch tribal housing. So they have this complex of buildings in Oakland, California. And as a large organization, they have a fairly typical corporate leadership. So Marty is the chief executive officer, CEO. They have a CIO, chief information officer. They have a CFO, chief financial officer. So, often referred to as the C-suite of all the corporate leadership. What Marty did fairly recently, maybe a year ago, maybe it's a little bit longer than that, but he added a brand new position to that C-suite that I wanted to share with you all. He developed a position called the CCO, and the CCO is Chief Cultural Officer. And the person on the right is Anthony Guzman, who's one of my new friends. I just really admire Anthony and love visiting with him. I believe Anthony Guzman is Southern Ute, or it might be Northern Ute. I might have those mixed up. But he's the Chief Cultural Officer for Native American Health Board. He has the responsibilities and the authorities of the other C-suite folks, and his job is to think. His job is to think about in a large organization, how is culture the center, not an afterthought, but the center, the core of all the work they do in all of the organization, all of their programs and services. And it's really incredible that they've done that. Now, several other organizations I know have done that as well, added a chief cultural officer, but that elevation and recognition and ingraining that in the organizational culture of Native programs is really fantastic. And if you haven't heard about that, I just wanted to share that with you and give both Marty Wakazoo and Anthony Guzman a shout out for the good work that they're doing. So the next slide. So I also just wanted to say again that I think I've mentioned this to you all before, but the state of California continues to make a investment in tribal traditional practices and integration of tribal traditional practices into substance use treatment. So currently, the state of California has funded 23 tribal health clinics and tribal grassroots, native grassroots organizations up and down the state of California. And the purpose of that funding is to support those local communities to look at their local traditional practices and cultural practices and think about how and if some of those practices should be integrated into their substance use treatment work. Some practices are, well, all of our traditional practices are sacred, right? But some practices they may choose not to include for their own reasons. They have complete, total control of that. Others, they may in turn decide that they would like to look at the substance use treatment spectrum from engagement, assessment, diagnosis, treatment, and then recovery. So all the things that go within that, they can spend some time thinking about what that continuum is of substance use treatment and recovery, and then look at ways that they could, if they choose, they can drop in, they can sort of indigenize those services. I guess that's what I'm saying. They could take some of their practices and perhaps drop them in at certain points along that spectrum. One example that we talked about recently, which is relatively common, is many tribes, as you all know, have honor songs that they sing for some of our tribal veterans returning from combat or other special occasions. They have honor songs. So some tribes have integrated as a Native person's going through treatment, as they move through different stages of treatment and becoming well, they may decide to sing an honor song at a certain points. So that's just one tiny example of many ways that traditional practices could be integrated into substance use treatment and recovery. The other thing I wanted to mention to you all is that in addition to funding these 23 tribal health programs, Native health programs, some of them are urban Indian, the state also has the California Reducing Disparities Project, and that is a separate funding for 7 tribal projects, also focused on traditional practices. However, what I wanted to share with you is that where that funding comes from. So that funding comes from the millionaire tax. So back in 2004, California, the state of California developed this millionaire tax. So it was 1% tax on anyone that had personal income in excess of $1 million. And there's a lot of millionaires in California. So all of that money, and the millionaires hardly notice it, right? 1% out of, if you're gonna have $1 million, 1% really isn't too big of a deal. But it's quite a bit of money. And so that goes to the state. And at that time, the state had a Latina woman who was a friend of mine, who managed that rollout of all of that. So the money went to counties. Counties can pass it on to tribes and tribal programs, native programs. But the counties, when that first happened, I remember very clearly that they were like eager, like, because they wanted to increase their behavioral health support. So they were like, please, send us our check or whatever. However, the Latina woman, Rachel Guerrero, said, hold on, counties. We're not just going to automatically send you some funding. What we want you to do, county governments, is send us reports of what the population profile looks like in your service area, and then compare that with who you're actually providing services to. So if there was 20%, I'm just making this up, but let's say there's 20% of Hispanic population. Are they serving 20% or more of people that are from that population? So they made every county in the 58 counties in California do this process to really look at who they're actually serving, and then develop a plan to correct that. Then they receive their money. So I thought that was just really brilliant, but I just wanted to share with you all that there is ways through tax dollars that can be used for funding of behavioral health services for tribal people. So the next slide, and as you can see, what I'm doing for you today is just giving you a little walk around. We're just going to go through a bunch of different areas of programs I think that are really spectacular, and share some information with you very briefly on each one of them. Okay, so we went Alaska, then we went to Northern California, then we went to San Francisco, Oakland, and now we're going to drop down to Southern California, and I'll give you another example. So Southern California, you see Los Angeles on the halfway down on the left, and then Orange County, and then San Diego County. So I lived in San Diego County for about 10 years. Know the area fairly well. San Diego itself is over on the bottom left of the county there. It's on the coast. That's the city. That's what everybody knows about San Diego. Lovely place. The rest of the county, especially if you split the county in half and then went over to the east side towards Imperial County, that's all very rural country, and very much Indian country. Lots of tribes in that area. So I'm going to share with you in the next slide a couple of tribal programs that are doing some really interesting work. One of them, and they're in that east side of San Diego County. So one of them is Indigenous Regeneration, which is a program in San Diego County. They're fairly new. They've only been, they might be 7 years old. So they're a relatively new organization. They have done incredible things, starting with nothing to what they've developed. It's incredible what they've put together over this fairly short time. But one of their major focuses is on, their name is Indigenous Regeneration. And they're very big on sustainable development, and they're very big on sustainable native food gardens and native plants, and with all the other services that they support. They really have a strong emphasis on native food gardens and native plants and native bringing back the old time way that the tribes that they represent used to live. So they're a very remarkable group, and I really think a lot of them because they have done so much in such a short time. They've created villages. They've created these massive gardens. They've replanted, and then that's in partnership with services that they provide. And some of the services are in partnership with other area tribal programs. But And you see that a lot, and maybe where you all are from, you see people bringing back native food as part of overall health. So it's not just behavioral health, going to get some support for your emotional wellness. Many tribal programs are really integrating that with native food and bringing back that aspect of health as well. So that's one example. So the next one I want to show you is in the San Pasqual Band of Mission Indians. And that's a fantastic, beautiful picture. I love this picture. And behind the hill where that white house is, you can see that's a long valley there. That's Palma Valley. Unbelievably beautiful. Windy roads going through it. It's incredibly beautiful. It's more beautiful than the prettiest places in Hawaii that I've been. It's very beautiful, and that's all traditional land. So the next slide, and this is still San Diego County. So one of the things that that particular tribe, and there are many tribes there, many tribes in that part of California, and the Indigenous Regeneration Program is that they are bringing back the Kumeyaw bird songs. So they have a bird song project. And if you go to the Indigenous Regeneration website, they have a whole bird song section where they explain the history of the bird songs. They have videos of people singing bird songs and kind of explaining what they are. But they're using exploring the bird songs and the language, the Kumeyaw language, bringing it back to, again, integrate, look at ways that bird songs and other cultural practices can be integrated into their substance use treatment programs. And I also have always been very appreciative of the humans, and I like the way that instead of humans with an H, it's humans with a Y. But anyway, you can go on their website and see. And then we have a little example we want to show you right now.
Come on out here, dance with the ladies and gentlemen. Come on, let's go. County style, come up here, let's go.
that's really fabulous. In any of our tribes or urban Indian programs that you all are part of, you can imagine how if you introduce cultural practices like the bird songs in this example, where you help someone who maybe they're living in an addiction world and they want to change. And if they get introduced to traditions like in this example, bird songs, if they get introduced to what the bird songs mean, or a bird song means, and they're all different, I'm sure. And if they get engaged in the how to sing a bird song, how to dance to a bird song, there's brain science about addiction, right? So being involved in something that feeds your cultural self and that can create new pleasure pathways, positive pleasure pathways in your brain instead of addiction, it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. So, okay. So now we're going to switch a little bit and we're going to go to the middle of the country, the north part of the middle of the country, to Minneapolis. So one of my there's many wonderful tribal programs, as you all know, from in the Minneapolis area, and maybe some of you are from there. But the one that I really have a lot of respect for is Little Earth. So this is a picture of some of the Little Earth art. And if we can go to the next slide. If you don't know about Little Earth, it's been around a long time, since 73. So that's like 50 years, right? So Little Earth, I don't know if my math's right on that. May not be 50 years, but anyway, since 73. It's the largest urban Indian subsidized housing project in the country. And it's right in Minneapolis. It's on the little under 10 acres. And it has these 212 housing units, all Native people. There's a park across the street that in the summer in particular, Native people will go and camp. And they have a residents association, a Little Earth Residents Association, which is sort of the leadership, the resident leadership of the Little Earth housing. So the next slide. So where Little Earth is located, it was really close, like a few blocks from where the terrible George Floyd incident happened. And you remember all the riots and everything that happened after that. So there was real danger to Little Earth because they were physically so close to the terrible George Floyd murder. And so they needed security. And some of the American Indian Movement folks came and helped with their security to patrol to try to keep the rioters away from Little Earth, which were really like right there. But they also did something really unique that I wanted to show you and have you think about. They also use aunties and grandmas as part of their to help with community safety. So you can imagine what it would be like to have aunties and grandmas walking around on patrol as well, and the respect that people have for aunties and grandmas. But I just thought it was really fabulous, and I just want to share that little bit with you about. We have lots of resources in tribal communities, and aunties and grandmas are a really important resource. So I just want to share that with you. And now we're going to go on to another piece of the walk around. So this is Texas Native Health in Dallas, Texas. I'm a UT graduate, University of Texas graduate from Austin. And back then, there was little services in Dallas. Yeah, thank you, Emily. There was little, there didn't seem to be a lot of organization of the tribal folks in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. And Texas, now called Texas Native Health, they've had several other names as they've evolved to meet the need. So you can see that what is now called Texas Native Health, they've been around for over 50 years. but they're really a fantastic organization, and they have really very interesting Native staff that are, in my opinion, are thought partners in the development of the work that they do. And so now they have 58,000 square feet facility in the Dallas Medical District. They're a wonderful organization. They used to be called Intertribal. Can't remember. They've had a couple of names, but now they're Texas Native Health. And if you go to their website, it tells you a little history about how they've evolved over the past 53 years. And I love the name. I think that's a cool name, Texas Native Health. So the next slide is the thing I wanted to emphasize of what they do in they have behavioral health services, of course, and you can see their focus on helping people explore and heal from past trauma. But the thing they do is really interesting is they really have an emphasis on stress management. So when people come into treatment for trauma, there's a whole treatment approach for trauma victims, and that's whether you have been in a trauma experience or multiple in your own personal life, or whether you've witnessed trauma. But there's a whole treatment approach about trauma, and stress management is part of that, but it's usually not a huge, big part. They make it a big part. They really focus on, in addition to the treatment, the stress management strategies that they use, and they use relaxation training to help the folks seeking support for their trauma. So I think their whole thing on stress management and relaxation training for their clients and people they serve is fantastic. So I just want to share that with you. More and more tribal programs, as you all know, do have massage therapy, and they have other kinds of support. But I just love the way that the Texas folks have really integrated that into their behavioral health. Okay, so I think that's what I wanted to share with you all, is give you a quick little look around Indian country, around the Indian world there. And the main thing that we see is that there's tremendous diversity and you all know this, in how Native communities address their behavioral health needs. But more and more, they're integrating their environment, whether it's plant-based, place-based, tradition-based. They're have different approaches to address their environment to strengthen and integrate their local culture into their behavioral health services. And it's really fantastic. So it is another example of the brilliance of tribal people and how they are really reclaiming what they've always known and integrated into behavioral health. So it shows us again that we all know, we're all fans of this, right? Native people are intelligent. We're inherently intelligent. It is in our genetic makeup. We are very brilliant people. But I think that if people have information that how unhealthy choices damage current or future aspects of their life, if they understand what some of these street drugs do to your brain, if they have that information, that inherent intelligence can kick in and say, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to damage my brain. And it can change behavior. And this might seem like a really obvious point, but healthy behavior choices certainly improve the odds for your healthy physical life. There's no reason for tribal people to have a shorter lifespan than other populations in the world. And all the examples that I showed you show how they're promoting cultural traditions, which in turn impact and boost cultural pride and healthy behavior choices. So I think the next slide is the transition. So I just want to give you a quick little walk around and give you some samples of some. And there are many, many programs all around the country. I just happened to pick these few, but I could do this every week for years and not touch on all the wonderful programs that probably some of your areas are offering. So I'm going to stop there and turn it over to Livia.
Well, thank you so much. Hi, everybody. I am Livia Davis, and as you can see on this slide, I consider myself a non-native guest in this native space. And Holly, just listening to everything that you just shared from your walkabout, I just took a couple of high-level notes. We heard about behavioral health disruptions due to climate change, the great diversity of tribes across California, his whole vision to add a chief cultural officer to the C-suite, funding to support tribal traditional practices. We heard about native regeneration, the Kaniai bird songs to increase engagement and retainment in substance use treatment and recovery, Little Earth's amazing resident association, and the Texas Brilliance in tribal healthcare. Those are just some of the kind of headings that I heard. And I'm wondering if anyone has any kind of reflections on any of these as you listened to Holly.
Yeah, feel free to come off mute or feel free to share in the chat. We welcome any sort of interaction.
Margaret, thank you for your note. Yes, it's so amazing to see the breadth and diversity of the brilliance. All right, so there is a program, is a question. Are there similar programs in the Dakotas, Holly?
There. And my internet just said it was a little unstable, but I saw a question about Dakotas. Are there similar programs in Dakotas? And there are. There are many wonderful programs in Dakota. And one of them I was hearing about just yesterday that I must go visit them. I must, on my list. They have, instead of, you all know in substance use treatment, there's medication assisted treatment. They have an approach which is ceremony assisted treatment for their native substance use treatment work. And I love the concept of ceremony assisted treatment. And it's the first time I've heard that, and I give them full credit. It's in Rapid City, South Dakota, and I will be visiting them at some point and then sharing that information with you all. So I don't know if there's any other questions or comments, Lydia.
Is there a Native American National Crisis Team that addresses Native disasters specifically for support and assistance?
There are, let's see, I'm trying to get my thoughts together. Yes. And right now it's under the 988 work. You know, there's always been 911, which is public safety. If something is happening and you need the police or the county sheriff or the fire department, then people dial 911. And you all probably know that. And I think we did a session on it. And now there's a 988. And 988 is a crisis response for emotional distress. And there are many tribal programs around the country. Well, I shouldn't say many. There are a growing number of tribal programs that have the 988 tribal funding, and they are crisis responders. There are crisis responders through a call line or a chat and text line. So they don't get up and go to the incident. And the 988 is designed to reduce the unnecessary use of police and reduce unnecessary hospitalization, emergency room, and reduce the unnecessary psychiatric placements. So there are many around the country that have crisis response teams, and the state of Washington has a tribal 988 system. It's the only one in the country. And but there's a lot of great work going on with the 988 work, and they are in addition to that crisis line type of work with native staff answering the phones. There's also mobile crisis response, which is another big funding source that's kind of going across the country. And those are the ones where they're behavioral health teams, mental health teams, and they can include a peer person. So it could be a behavioral health aide, or if you had a auntie or grandma, for example, they can partner with a mental health staff person, and they can go and respond as mobile crisis response. So those are two big funding areas that are pretty hot right now in the country, not just in the country, the entire United States.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And there's some more comments in there that really aren't questions, but just appreciation for what you're sharing. There's some examples of other, practices. Charmaine is sharing the Future Generations Collaborative in Oregon has been working on healing families through non-judgmental support. And talking about, never giving up on a person and getting out of the box and thinking about how we can support one another. So
That's
a lot of thank yous in the chat box for you.
That's great. And in substance use treatment, relapse is part of an expected part of that whole process. And programs used to, not native programs, native people, but programs, substance use treatment programs used to, if you relapse, you're out of here kind of thing. Really? And native programs, for the most part, don't do that because they, relapse. We hope people don't relapse, but when they do, they don't need to be kicked out of a program because they relapse. They need the program even more so. So, but thank you all for the questions and comments, and it's really great to see everybody. And I hope you enjoyed the walk around, which is what I'm calling it, out of respect to our Aboriginal friends. And so I think that sums it up for today. And I think Bernice has a few things to say about these next slides.
Oh, just if you have any follow-up questions, you can email any of us on this slide. You can email Holly, Lee to answer any tech questions, or myself I know a lot of times, I just want to throw this out there really quick. If you registered for the series, I know you have to look at the old past registration links. It just comes up one time. If you can't find it, you're going to have to re-register. There's no way around it, just to throw that out there. I hate that for you guys, but that's just how it works. We can't get that link for you because it's made for each individual person. So just kind of look in your spam folders for that link. And that's the only way to get it. Next slide. And next month, July 23rd, Tuesday, same time, we'll have the International Indigenous Behavioral Health by our Holly Echo Hawk. So anything words with that, Holly?
Yeah, and so since I'm here at our International Indigenous Behavioral Health meeting with our good friends from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Norway, and other countries, I thought, well, I should share that information with you guys. So I'm going to share that with you all next month and share some really interesting examples of other Indigenous behavioral health approaches from these other countries. And I just spent 2 days with them, and it was really wonderful. And I have to tell you that the Maori people, in particular, I don't know if you know this, but maybe you do, they sing a lot. So they will stand up and sing, and they sing a lot, and it's really beautiful to hear them. And it's quite a blessing to be around all of these other international Indigenous folks. So next month, I will share that information with you. So come back, join us again next month.
And we'll close out with Water Song. Hope y'all can stay on to listen, but we'll send out everything after the fact.
Granddaughter, the water can hear you. The water has memory.
Nibi,
Nibi,
Wabo,
Wabo,
Endayan,
Endayan.
Nibi, Wabo, Endayan, Aki Misri, Nibi, Wabo, Heya, 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 Hey, Heya, 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 Ho.
Water is the life's blood of our mother, the earth. Water is the lifeblood of our own body.
Nibi, Wabo, Endayan, Aki Misri, Nibi, Wabo, Heya, 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 Hey, Heya, 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 Ho.
To continue to pass on the knowledge that needs to be given unto the other generations. You are the keeper of the water.
Nibi, Wabo, Endayan, Aki Misri, Nibi, Wabo, Heya, 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 Hey, Heya, 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 Ho.
To make the change in this life condition that we're in, that great-grandchildren will stand up to this truth of what life is about and to live it in such an honorable way, the way ancestors came to this earth.
Nibi, Wabo, Endayan, Aki Misri, Nibi, Wabo, Heya, 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 Hey, Heya, 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 Ho.
Each day when the sun rises, no matter how bad the day before might have been, there's a new chance for your hopes and dreams. And I say, Chimiigwech, thank you for singing the water song.
Nibi, Wabo, Endayan, Aki Misri, Nibi, Wabo, Heya, 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 Hey, Heya, 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 Ho.
See you, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. It's great to see everybody.